Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chapter 2, focusing on thought groups. We're going to do one more warm-up exercise together, and that is exercise 2, which begins on page 73 and continues on page 74. Listen to CD2 track 37 and listen to this radio advertisement for the Japanese tea ceremony at the Imperial Japanese Tea House. So this is a radio advertisement, and what I want you to do for this is mark the end of each thought group with a forward slash, with this symbol. You can see the first sentence is done for you, and we're marking a slash, forward slash mark, every time we hear a pause. And the pause indicates, this is how we divide, right? And in written English, we use punctuation marks. We use commas, we use periods, we use semicolons and colons, exclamation marks, question marks. All of those indicate the end of a thought group and then the beginning of another one. That's what we do in written English. We use punctuation. In spoken English, we use our voices. And one of the main ways that we use our voice to indicate thought groups is through pausing. And we're going to talk about that in greater detail later this chapter. So that's what this is practicing, your ability to identify, your ability to identify pauses and the use of pauses in spoken English to divide thought groups in the stream of speech, in everyday common speech. So let's give CD2 track 37 a listen, and again, I want you to put a slash mark, a forward slash mark, everywhere you hear a pause. Let's give it a listen.
Exercise 2B, page 74. An old Japanese proverb says that without tea, a person is incapable of understanding truth and beauty. The Imperial Japanese Tea House offers a solution to those who seek truth, beauty, and a strong cup of tea. Sip fine teas, poured by expert servers in ceremonial dress. To book your authentic Japanese tea ceremony, call us at 202-222-2020.
All right, we're going to give it another listen here in just a moment, but just take a look at this first sentence as an example. An old Japanese proverb says that without tea, a person is incapable of understanding truth and beauty. So these pauses here indicate different thought groups that have a main idea in each of them. Japanese proverb, without tea, the idea of not having tea, a person is then incapable of understanding truth and beauty. So all of these, although they're interconnected, although it's one comprehensive sentence, these are the different parts to a sentence. If we were to say, an old Japanese proverb says that without tea, a person is incapable of understanding truth and beauty, it's like, whoa. It's hard to comprehend all of that, right? It's hard to digest all of the information in that sentence. So what do? In English, we divide our language, we divide our thoughts and ideas into thought groups. And we use pauses to break up these chunks of language so that they're easier to digest. I mean, think of thought groups as, like my 2-year-old son. We don't give him whole grapes, right? He could choke. It's dangerous. So we cut our grapes into these smaller pieces, right? It's still a whole grape, but it's cut into 3 or 4 pieces so what? So it's easier for him to digest. It's what we do when we cut a steak. You're not going to have a whole steak or a Thanksgiving turkey. we got to cut it up into different chunks. So just like how we do that with our meals, we do that with our language. And in English, we use thought groups to just break down the big ideas that we have so that they're easier to comprehend. So you using these thought groups will help you be better understood when you're speaking, and then in listening, it'll help improve your comprehension when you know to listen for these different pauses. I'm going to play it one more time for you guys, and I want you to double check where you found those different pauses for the thought groups. Let's give it one more listen.
Exercise 2B, page 74. An old Japanese proverb says that without tea, a person is incapable of understanding truth and beauty. The Imperial Japanese Tea House offers a solution to those who seek truth, beauty, and a strong cup of tea. Sip fine teas, poured by expert servers in ceremonial dress. To book your authentic Japanese tea ceremony, call us at 202-222-2020.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off here. We already know where the pauses are in the first sentence. I'm going to read them to you again, and then I will indicate where I heard the pauses. The Imperial Japanese Tea House, pause, offers a solution, pause, to those who seek truth, pause, beauty, pause, and a strong cup of tea, pause. Sip fine teas, pause, poured by expert servers, pause, in ceremonial dress, pause. To book your authentic Japanese tea ceremony, pause, call us at 202, pause, 222, pause, 2020. And then that's the end, right? And by the way, I don't know if they said, I can't remember if they said 202 or 2020. In English, we also use O, right? The letter O for zero. It's just easier to say instead of zero. Easier to just say O. So I don't know. How did yours compare? Did you find the same pauses? I mean, obviously we're going to get pauses here with the punctuation. We talked about that at the beginning of the chapter, right? That in written English we use punctuation. So every time you see a comma, or I shouldn't say every time, most of the time when we see a comma or a period, we would expect to have a pause, right? So those parts are easy, where the commas are, where the periods are. Perhaps maybe you've been in the country a while and you know that when a phone number is given, we have pauses here, where the dash marks are. But how did the rest? Were you able to pick up the other pauses as well? The more that you're able to do this, the better able you're going to be able to produce the pauses. And I think the better off you're going to be in terms of being understood and then understanding thought groups when spoken to in English. So great practice, exercise 2.